Yo, 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 what's up, everybody? I sound like a DJ from the 90s, like I'm some kind of rap artist. Yo, 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 what's up? Anyway, let me get the recording started and then we will jump right in to Liberty Talk.
The Constitution isn't just a document. It's a blueprint for freedom. We're breaking down politics at every level, exposing government overreach, and going where the mainstream media surely won't. Join us in defending individual rights against the bureaucratic tide. You're listening to the Missouri Liberty Report.
All right, everybody, and we are back for another edition of the Missouri Liberty Report. To all of those of you who watch on YouTube, Facebook, or Rumble, we greatly appreciate it. And everyone who listens in the podcasting apps or at molibertyradio.us, we also greatly appreciate your continued viewership or listenership, however you get this show. We greatly appreciate it. So we've got some things that we want to cover tonight, and I have got to pull up a video clip because I think I want to play this first just because it's like so pressing, and hopefully I know this is going to start up right away. I just know it is. So please forgive me. Let me just go ahead and get share my screen real quick. And then, because again, I know it's going to play right away, but listen to what this guy says. I got a lot of things I want to say about this douche canoe who is making this statement here, but let me share my screen. Go here. Maybe, okay. Let's see. All right, so it didn't, look at that. It didn't start playing right away. I just have to turn on the volume. Look at me go. Yay us. All right, here we go. Really? We're going to do this crap now? Got a second of audio and then, come on. I've got the volume up and everything. Oh my goodness.
I think behavior norms have really changed in America over the last few years, and it's gotten worse and worse. And I think every American citizen should be nervous and concerned about the way people are conducting themselves in these public meetings. And I think all I can say to every single one of them is that we're going to listen to every one of their concerns, no matter how loudly they yell it at us, and we're going to try to answer their questions rationally. And listen, I think when you look at some of the development of data centers across the United States, some of them have been built in inappropriate locations. I don't think a data center should be built 100 feet from somebody's home. When you look at some of the projects in Virginia, they're extremely close to people's homes. I don't think that's appropriate. And this project that we're proposing, and the site is up here on your left, we're going to be over 1,200 feet away from people's homes when all is said and done, and 1,200 feet is a long way from somebody's house.
So people were yelling and getting upset at these data center meetings, and Americans should be really concerned about the way people are conducting themselves at these meetings. Brandon, I'll let you take. Let's get your take first, and then I'll give my 2 cents on this, because this guy, I heard this and I was like, dude, that is not a good message that you're sending right now.
No. I mean, just personally, I tend to like hold myself to some level of decorum. Now, I'm not afraid to speak passionately or drop some cuss words. Like I'm not some pearl clutching, oh my, he's yelling. Like I get it. You're fired up and you should be allowed to be fired up. Now, again, I don't think that you help your side in an argument if you get up there at a podium and you're like, F this guy and F that guy, and you like don't have very, coherent arguments. Like people are going to judge you based on what you say and like the content, and some people are going to filter out, your emotion of it, and they're going to get down to like the heart of what your point and what you're getting at is. But moreover, I think it's funny. He's like, we see people with these data centers close to people's houses. Our solution, 1,200 feet. We're gonna be 2 football fields away, 3 football field. Don't worry, guys. Don't worry. It won't be like that's a wild argument in my opinion. No, and but as far as like, like again, I don't know the context very well. If people have just been getting up there and screaming nonsense and F bombs, then I'm not gonna say what he's saying isn't totally warranted. But if he's just upset because people are passionate and don't want the data center in their area, then he's kind of being a baby about it. Yeah.
My take was, and I even commented on the video too, because it was. Oh, well, I don't remember the. Oh, it was like something about being outside the norm, right? And I said, I basically commented. I made a comment on another post like that said, we have city officials not listening to people when they say we don't want this here. And then you ignore that. And then you have more meetings and people try to start out quiet about it, right? They try to be quiet and civil and no name calling, any of this. And because they've been so polite, you're like, yeah, screw these people. We're just going to go ahead and vote for it anyway. And then when you continue to not listen to them, and it's not like one person's upset. It's like 99% of the crowd's like, no. And you're like, that 1%, that guy made a really good point. We're listening to that one guy who's probably bought and paid for. So we're going to listen to him. You can't be shocked at some point down the road. Don't act all shocked and horrified that people are suddenly talking very loudly at you and maybe calling you names or just calling you out on your BS. And you'd be like, oh, we should be really worried about this. Like, you wouldn't have to be worried if you weren't seemingly pulling shady maneuvers all the time, having closed door meetings, giving people half the facts. And it's not just with data centers, it's with anything. I mean, look what happened at these school board meetings. The FBI was like, "Oh, we got these terrorist parents." I mean, because the parents were upset, and rightly so, because the school boards weren't listening and they were doing whatever they wanted to do. And then at some point, parents are like, "Okay, bro, we tried to be nice. You decided to not heed our warnings. So now we're going to call you everything. We're going to call you things you probably never heard before." And then they're going to clutch their pearls and wring their hankies, wring their hands and stomping their hankies and weeping openly, like, and play the victim card. And that's the worst part. It's like, no, the victims are the people that you constantly trample all over or ignore. So, and you can't pull the victim card. The only card that you should be pulling is your pink slip when you're no longer elected to that position. Either you're recalled or you're voted out in the next election or whatever. You're gone. Good day. Bye-bye. And I'm so sick of these type of people who they talk all this stuff, but then they won't. But then when the tables get turned, they want to pretend like they're a victim. And I hate that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Now I'm curious, where is that? Do you know who that was and like what city that was in? Or
I believe he is somebody that works for the construction company that was trying to that wants to put the data center in Festus, that CRG or whatever CGR place. Yeah. I believe he's with that organization.
Okay.
So
so that's just the developer company. They still haven't stated who they're developing for.
Right. Oh. Right. So, and there's been some other audio clips and I should have saved them. Let me check my profile real quick. I've saved so many things here lately that I've seen, and I get such a kick out of some of the stuff that I've been seeing. Let's see. Nope, I don't. No, I don't have anything else saved. But yeah, he's somebody that works for that. I believe he's like a spokesman or somebody that works for that outfit that was going to construct the data center. So yeah,
Okay.
I think he's just upset because again, and to your point, Brandon, he's like, "Ugh, this is 1,200 feet, not even a quarter of a mile away. And you act like that's just going to change the whole dynamic. No, bro, sorry. That's
So
that's not it.
where I go hunting at, like it's near train tracks, and then also near, like, I wouldn't call it it's, I guess it's technically a highway, but it's a 2-lane highway, real rural highway. And you pull off the rural highway, you drive about 300 yards out down a gravel road, make a couple turns, and you're on the land that you sit on. And while you're hunting, you'll hear that train buzzing through because it runs next to the road. So you'll hear the train whistle, and anytime it's crossing the road, and then you'll hear like truckers and stuff on the highway. So like you're 300 yards. Like if one of the big issues that from one of these data centers is that they're loud, you being 1,200 yards away or 1,200 feet away, you being 300 yards out, that's not going to like protect you from the sound at all. And I just wanted clarification on that because yeah, like if this guy's talking about the stuff in Festus, I mean, yeah, he's sounds like a big old baby.
Yeah, and so there's this new page I've been seeing a lot on Facebook. Excuse me, called Jeffco Patriot Radio. And one of the former uh speakers of the House, in fact, he's the head of the Missouri Freedom Caucus, Tim Jones. There's a lot of clips of him talking, and oh boy, man, is he trying to make himself sound like this big conservative champion about smaller governments. Like, dude, we know what you're like. We've seen your posts. We've seen the people that you prop up. You are not as small a government as you like to pretend that you are. So I've been seeing several clips, and I've been saving some of them just because I'm like, this is going to make a good show, some good content. Before I get into the articles that I sent, I just have to share this because this is one of those Jess Piper buttes here. So there's this clip. It shows this picture of Tucker Carlson with a quote says, "I'll be tormented for a long time by the fact that I played a role in getting Donald Trump elected, and I want to say that I'm sorry for misleading people." And somebody said, "This is a very humble and honest statement. Big respect to Tucker." Jess Piper says, "I loathe this fascist as much as the next person, but Tucker is proving what we have been saying for a long time. This dam is springing leaks. Folks are breaking. I see it on the ground, and now we see it with top MAGA influencers. November is coming, sinking ships." And then I just replied, "Fascist question mark with like 4 laughing emojis," because I thought you're an idiot. Just like normal, you're stupid. You're gonna of all the people you could call fascist. Now, I don't agree with everything. Tucker has some economic things that he's keen on that I'm not a fan of. But to try to call Tucker Carlson a fascist, the same woman who seemingly loved Joe Biden, the guy that wanted to make all the COVID rules about if you go to work and have vaccine mandates and all that, you're going to call Tucker Carlson a fascist. I got a pretty big kick out of that.
Yeah, considering that, and I don't even think I'm exaggerating when I say this. I think in every single possible way, Jess Piper wants a more controlling government than Tucker Carlson. And and I'm like off the top of my head, I cannot think of a single instance where Jess Piper, I mean, maybe on like, just to be completely honest and fair, Jess Piper might be a little bit better on like the use and of recreational drugs. Outside of that one thing I could think of, there's probably no other topic that Jess Piper is not more of a fascist than Tucker Carlson on. So yeah, totally. Like just they have no play. It's the same playbook. They've been calling everyone a fascist since 2016. I don't know when they're just going to stop. They've got Mark Levin doing it now.
Oh yeah, good God Almighty, that joke of a human being. But yeah, I see. Just she's had so many posts lately, and she's all like her big thing is now, because I guess she gets invited to talk in all these places, like different states at these events. She admits it. She is a progressive, right? She is a progressive type. She's a Democrat, blah, blah, blah. And she's just like, oh man, when it comes to this, like, and she's like, oh, we got 98% contested races. Like all these Democrats are coming out of the woodwork to run against where maybe Republicans didn't used to have to campaign against anybody or run against anybody. Now these Democrats are coming out of the woodwork to run against these Republicans. And I'm like, I hate to tell you this, but you're not going to win. If you win many seats, it won't be many. You're not going to get the majority. Now, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I'm not going to name names, but I have insider information here that there have been a number of Republicans calling libertarians, asking them to drop out of races they think are going to be close. I'm not, they are members of the House. I'm not going to name which ones, and I'm not going to name who's been doing the calling. But on behalf of those representatives, members of the Republican Party have been reaching out to the libertarians, asking us to drop out of certain House races, with offering us absolutely nothing, I should mind. Like, not willing to like compromise on any legislation. No, like, hey, what can we do to like bridge this gap here? Nothing. Just like, hey, we would really like for you to drop out of our race. 100, like, so, you know, I'm not saying that the Democrats are poised to take back the House in Missouri, but there's some seats that are held by Republicans that they are worried about. So, little caveat there.
You know, that really cracks me up. And so I'm just going to go out on a limb and say that if you think that a libertarian, if you're going to blame your loss on a libertarian candidate and not look at yourself in the mirror and the votes and the way you behaved, the way you carried yourself on the floor of that house with your votes, if you're going to try to push the blame on a libertarian candidate, you're an idiot. And I mean, that's it. If they take an L on election day, they need to go home, they need to look in the mirror and they go, what's the problem? And they go like this and they point at the mirror and the mirror reflection points back at them. They can see themselves pointing at the problem. It's like, dude, you're the problem. Now, I do find it interesting. They posted the House votes today for HJR 173 and 174. And I doubt that he's watching right now. Bryant Wolfen changed to a no vote. So I don't know if things came up. I know I believe the Senate wanted to make amendments to that bill before it got back to the House. I think they wanted some changes. Maybe the Senate made some changes. Not 100% sure, but I saw a few people post that today in the socials. And I looked, I blew up, I zoomed in on the shot, went over to Wolfen's name. No. And I'm like, okay, I think he thought about it longer and went, this isn't the way. I don't think it's going to pass in November. I don't think it's going to. I think it's going to fail. The Democrats aren't behind it. There's a lot of people that are Republican or vote Republican that are not a fan of this. I think it's going to fail. What worries me is if it doesn't pass at the ballot box, what kind of shady, underhanded crap they're going to try to do to get it done some other way, to try to, I mean, just like they did with the gas tax, right? Some end around the Hancock Amendment or some unconstitutional crap that they're going to come up with, because clearly they want to get this done. I mean, it was a major push to get it through and get it to the governor's desk so he could sign it, so it would go on the ballot in November. It just seems like they're hell-bent on this, just like the gas tax. Maybe they try it 3 times. They swing and miss 3 times. They're like, fine, we'll do it ourselves. Who knows what's going to happen? But I have a feeling especially if this fails at the ballot box, this will not be the last time that we hear about this ending the state income tax here in Missouri. Somebody at the top of the Republican Party or several somebodies at the top of the Republican Party either at the national level or at the state level, is pushing this. When you have the governor making several statements at press conferences about this, you've got some of these Republicans out there, the big government Republicans talking about this constantly, how we need to get rid of the state income tax. That tells me when the governor and these people are all in alignment and they're all talking about it nonstop, and you keep seeing like audio clips or like articles on it, that means somebody way above them um, wants to get this done. That's my opinion. So we'll.
Yeah.
I will say too, real quick, because I'm afraid my brain's not firing today. So next week we're gonna have let me make sure I get his name right too, because I don't want to screw that up. Next week we're gonna have Michael Murphy on. He's running for a county, I think a county executive position. He's a libertarian type out of Cook County in Illinois. Whew, that's a rough, that's a tough row to hoe there. He's going to be on. And I found this other guy by the name of Brian Smith out of Idaho. Now he's running for a Republican committeeman. But everything I see him posting on is talking about how, like he talks about the Second Amendment. He's like, the Second Amendment is in the Constitution for a reason. And then he says it's your God-given right of natural defense enumerated into the Constitution because the government's supposed to protect it. And I've seen a lot of his other stuff. I'm like, this guy seems like he's got it together. So I've reached out to him because he's from another state and he runs as a Republican, but he sounds libertarian. So I'm going to ask him to see if he'll come on as well. I just didn't want to forget about that before I reached out. I haven't heard anything from him yet, but Michael Murphy will be joining us next week on the show. I think that could be an interesting conversation.
Oh yeah. Because there's going to be a lot. Hopefully he's going to have a lot of knowledge about exactly, hopefully, how the city of Chicago and how Cook County, I'm sure there's tons of waste, fraud, and abuse, just like there is in Minneapolis and California. I'm sure Chicago's not an exception as far as big blue cities go for something like that. So yeah, I'm really hoping we can dig into maybe even some numbers if he's got them. So that would be pretty interesting. And then just to remind everybody, the following week on Monday, special edition Missouri Liberty Report with Spike Cohen. That's going to be pretty exciting. And then the following day is a Marxist Tuesday. So we got a pretty jam-packed loaded next couple weeks for everybody. So it's pretty exciting.
Yeah. Just to butt in here for 1 second. There will be audio versions of both of those and video versions of both of those. As far as the Missouri Liberty, or as far as MO Liberty Radio, I'm probably just going to send out the Spike, because if I put two in, that I don't want to mess anything up. So I'll put the Spike Cohen, upload that one for the MO Liberty Radio audience. But if you download by whatever podcast app or you watch it on a live stream, both those shows will be available in both formats. So you can hear the audio or you can watch the live stream or check it out later. Anyway, sorry to cut in.
No, you're okay. I think what a lot of people are realizing too about HJR 173 and 174 is that there is no check on the state legislature for the next 3 years on raising taxes on whatever they feel like. It's whatever, it wouldn't quite be nearly as scary if, one, our state legislature was competent to begin with, and two, if they weren't so corrupted by like the special interests in the phone calls they get in their office all day long. Like if this was like just people looking at a budget going, we can make some cuts, we can shift some things around here and there, we'll add little taxes to some services here and there to like come up with something balanced. But I don't trust that at all. That's not what's going to happen. They're going to get a million phone calls. You're going to have people fighting for getting funding for, leaving out certain things from the taxes, adding more taxes to people who don't have lobbyists or don't have anybody ringing the phones at the Capitol building. And so it's just going to be like, I could definitely see it just ending up being a macrocosm of what we already see when we have the budgets, where people throw in like daycare centers for this county's police department, and extra spending for this and that, and taxes for this or that, because certain interests want, like, certain businesses, like big businesses, would thrive better if their competition had to deal with more regulation and more taxes. So you could see it going both ways in both directions, and there's just too much corruption in Jeff City for anyone to feel, for anyone who should feel comfortable. Like, no one should feel comfortable with giving the legislature that much power given their history.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, they have 3 years, and there's all these service taxes they're going to come up with. The sales tax will increase. Again, you won't see it come out of your check, but all these services that don't get taxed now, or maybe they're taxed at a lower rate or whatever, those are all going to go up. So I think it'll be a net loss for people. I really do. I think it'll still be a net loss. Um, again, a sales tax is something you can avoid at times, like you have a little more control, right? But how many people use different services? And now, oh, we're going to put a tax on this and a tax on that one and a tax on, I mean, it could be streaming services. They're not even saying what types of services. Not that I've seen. I haven't seen a real well laid out plan. And that's the thing. They didn't have a real well laid out plan when they cooked this up. They didn't say, this is what we're going to be targeting. They just said, we have a 3-year block to come up with whatever we can and bypass a vote of the people. And that's what we're doing. And it's like, that's extra scary. We should just, no trust, no faith in them. They can't balance a budget. They can't shrink the budget. They refuse to stop spending money. And you think giving these people the power to like, oh, I'm getting rid of my income tax. Like, yeah, good luck every time you pay for service or whatever. I want to, there was a quote that I saw today and I really liked it. It said, because this fits on so many different topics that we cover on this show. This one comes from Bastiat. It says, if the natural tendencies of mankind are so bad that it is not safe to permit people to be free, how is it that the tendencies of government are always good? Do they not also belong to the human race? Are they made of a finer clay than the rest of mankind? I mean, Bastiat's got a point there.
Yeah.
What's the deal? Why are they? Again, it's brainwashing, it's programming. But if we can't be trusted with our own freedoms to do what we please, as long as we don't hurt anybody else, why? And you have no faith in that. Why are you putting your faith in the other humans that are sitting in a building? Why are you putting them on a pedestal? Why do they get to act like they're hovering above the rest of us, like some all-knowing being? Why are we doing that? Why is this happening? So that's a great quote. I like that. I found that one today.
Yeah. It kind of embodies the whole Murray Rothbard's anatomy of the state. Like the government just is essentially just it's the system we have of checks and balances ends up being more of like a validity on itself. So like, if the Supreme Court is derelict in its duty and doesn't actually restrict something, but deems something that is what most people would view, or like what someone who reads would view as something unconstitutional, just because the Supreme Court allowed it doesn't make it actually constitutional, just adds this fake level of validity behind the decision that the legislature made, or that something in the executive branch was done. And so again, yeah, you're talking about like, people are so out of control. We need to control those people. With who? Well, people, of course. Like, yeah, it's a self-defeating prophecy there, letting the government full of people be in charge of people because people can't be trusted.
And speaking of people who can't be trusted, I was just looking across different news channel sites. Fox 2 Now had this article. Let me share my screen here once I get it. I'll read this one. This is not a very long article, but Where is former Circuit Attorney Kim Gardner now? Says nearly 3 years ago, Kim Gardner resigned as St. Louis Circuit Attorney over allegations of ethic violations and office mismanagement. With Gardner's legal career seemingly behind her, the former city prosecutor has followed her other life's passion and now works in the healthcare field. Jesus, that's horrifying. Gardner has relocated to Sacramento, California, where she works as a nursing fellow in the University of California, Davis Health Department of Psychiatry and Behavioral Sciences. She needs psychiatry, but not to be head of it. She needs to have her head examined. She's listed as one of 8 APP fellows at the Betty Irene Moore School of Nursing. Gardner's biography on the APP Fellows listing says she integrates her clinical training with a background in law to address the complex intersection of health disparities, structural inequalities, and a criminal legal system. Gardner earned a bachelor's degree in healthcare administration from Harris Stowe State University in 1999. She attended SLU School of Law and earned her Juris Doctor law degree in 2003. She went back to SLU and procured her master's degree in nursing in 2012. In spring 2023, Gardner had enrolled in a nursing program at SLU while working as the circuit attorney, prompting complaints from then Missouri Attorney General Andrew Bailey. The former Attorney General accused her of not being focused on her job she was elected to do. A January 2025 report from Missouri Auditor Scott Fitzpatrick found patterns of mismanagement and neglect during Gardner's tenure, including 29 full days and 11 half days in which she performed classwork during business hours as circuit attorney. Throughout her tenure from 2017 to 2023, Gardner faced frequent criticism from state leaders who pointed to low rates of convictions for violent crimes and high office turnover. Gardner once faced legal battles on numerous fronts from the former attorney general's push to remove her from office and indirect criminal contempt cases and a dwindling roster of prosecutors in her office due to resignations. At one time, one St. Louis judge dubbed it a rudderless ship of chaos. In 2024, Gardner admitted misusing more than $5,000 in public funds from the contingent fund account in circuit attorney's office, choosing to reimburse herself for paying fees and costs assessed against her by the Missouri Supreme Court in August 2022. So that's what happened to Kim Gardner. I think a lot of us, those of you who watched or listened to this show for quite some time, we talked about her several times on this show. They kept calling her to testify up in Jeff City, and she would never show up. She would send someone else. And they were like, no, you need to show up, send somebody else, or no one would show up. And to tell a little story here, I don't remember the prosecutor or the attorney before her. I can't remember that person's name. But there was an issue in Eureka where these group of like 4 guys one guy was walking up around this cul-de-sac and trying to get into any unlocked car he could find. And so somebody saw it, called the cops. They catch these guys. They take them in. They run their names. They all have like felony warrants. They call the circuit attorney's office and say, we got 4 guys here, all with felony warrants. We caught them. They were trying to break into cars. I believe they got caught with like a stolen AR, a stolen pistol, and some other stuff. And that attorney goes, cut them loose. That was her predecessor. And then you had the McCloskey case, which she kind of, she was all over that. Ooh, 2 white people defending their property against a bunch of minorities. I'm going to charge them and put them, push them down under the thumb of my authority. But then people do horrible things, commit horrible crimes. And she's like, cut them loose, cut them loose, cut them loose. And apparently she was an awful person to work for. That's why she couldn't keep any staff around. It was just a total you-know-what show under Kim Gardner. And no one's sad to see her gone, except maybe the criminals who do awful things and like, oh, man, we're not going to escape free now. I'm going to actually have to spend time in jail. So yeah, they're sad, but the people who just don't want to be harmed were like, thank God she's gone. So anyway, just
I
thought I'd bring that up.
I could be mistaken, but I'm almost certain that she was Soros funded. Kim Gardner was. Now,
Yes,
the
she was.
person I just Googled it, it said that the St. Louis Circuit Attorney before Kim Gardner was Jennifer Joyce, but I wasn't even really that into politics at that time, so I don't know anything about her. I do remember Kim Gardner, I believe. Now, again, I could be getting all of this wrong, so I apologize if I'm filling everyone's head with false information, but I also believe that Kim Gardner took a lot of crap because there was a girl who was in town for some sort of, I want to say, ice skating competition, but it could have been some other type of
Yep.
competition, and she was hit by a car and lost both of her legs. And the guy who hit her had been released by her a bunch of times. Now, to what was the quote on what that one judge said about her office? It was
Oh, it was a rudderless ship of chaos.
a rudderless ship of chaos. Yeah, I heard from different sources, or maybe I don't remember where I heard this, but also that while she was there, when under her tenure, that a bunch of cases like violent offenders and all of that were continually being, like, they were, the prosecutor's office was continually having those cases postponed, like getting continuances on all of these cases because they just never came to court prepared. Like, she never had a full staff, so the people that were there never
Yep.
had enough like legal assistants working on their teams to like build cases against violent criminals who'd been sitting in jail on bail, again, innocent until proven guilty. So there are people who might have been innocent sitting in jail waiting for their court date, getting continued and pushed back because the courts were derelict in their duty. So yeah, I mean, it was a giant mess under Kim Gardner, and I am not even wholly convinced that it wasn't that way on purpose. That there was an agenda to push through this, like, we're going to release the criminals, no cash bail. Remember when that was catching traction
Oh
in
yeah.
places, no cash bail. I
Yep.
mean, so it was on a wave of like this nationalized, like, we're going to be nicer to hardened criminals push that we saw from Soros funded judges. So yeah, she's a mess. Glad she's gone. It almost felt like that article was like, do you guys remember how bad she was? Like, that was the whole article. It was like, remember how horrible it was? I wonder if the current St. Louis Circuit Attorney put him up to that article. Like, hey, you guys should run an article about how bad it was. Maybe the people will cut me some slack.
Yeah, it's hard to say. I just remember how much, the amount of people calling for her head, and especially again in Jeff City, where she was called to testify about her behavior, and she would just send somebody else, and they're like, "No, we don't want to talk to you. We want to talk to Miss Gardner." And I'm sure she's like, "I ain't got to do that. I ain't going up there."
She
And it's
had
like,
nursing class. What was she going to do? She couldn't miss
oh
nursing
yeah,
class.
it's crazy to think that she's up there talking about, like, the intersections of, like, criminal activity or criminal law and health. It just sounds so California, right? Sounds so woke. She'll fit right in there. Like, well, we have these dis this disparities in healthcare and in crime. It's like, what does crime have? The only thing crime has to do with health care is that the amount of people getting shot in the area is hospitals are being flooded by assault victims or gunshot victims. That's the only way crime is going to intersect with healthcare, is because you don't prosecute people, violent offenders, and they go out and beat up or assault or stab or shoot more people. So it's flooding the friggin' hospitals. That's about it. It has nothing else to do with any of this. Like, it's so retarded. Come on. But again, she'll fit right in California.
You read my mind, actually. I thought the same thing when you read that article. It was like complex intersection of three things that aren't connected. Like, yeah, it's a complex intersection. They're not related at all. Yeah, you're totally right on that.
Yeah, they're probably like, this gal's good for business. Like, what do you mean? She'll let criminals off the hook, and then they'll commit more crimes and assault more people, so we can bring more people in and patch them up and get more insurance money. So yeah, let's get her in here.
The insurance company, the public defender's office, the prosecutor's office, they're like, guys, we can make a lot more money if we just process so many people by letting them all go. You're free to go. You're free to go. You're free to go. Look how many cases we've solved, guys. Everyone's free to go.
It kind of reminds you of the talk that Spike Cohen gave at the Libertarian Convention, where he's like, the government kind of subsidizes foster care. So if you get more kids out of homes because they're abused, you get more money, and incentivizes, them to just go full send and accuse a lot of people of stuff they didn't do. And it's one of those things too where it's really odd because she was a prosecutor, she was a circuit attorney, she was terrible at her job. She didn't care. And so you look at her and you're like, these people are awful. Don't forget, people, we have a prosecuting attorneys, some kind of group. Every state probably has one. Missouri has one. So a few years ago, someone was pushing and basically was an enhanced stand your ground law. So let's say you're in your home or something or somewhere and you defend your life or your property. Someone comes in, they're trying to do harm, you fill them full of lead and kill them, right? So at this time, if they want to consider it murder, they could. And the onus would be on you to prove self-defense. Somebody had proposed a bill. It said, if I commit self-defense, an act of self-defense in my home, my property, it would now be up to prosecutors to inject murder. They would, in fact, have to prove murder instead of you trying to prove self-defense. The Prosecuting Attorneys Association was not happy with that law, hated that bill. Somebody from the Missouri Freedom Initiative approaches Dean Plocker at that time, and he says that bill will not see the light of day. And his reasoning, if you're a freedom lover, you'll love the reasoning behind this one. Brandon, you'll get a kick out of this. Is that the state doesn't have the resources to do that. And the guy's like, and you think all these common people out here have the resources to pay an attorney ungodly amounts of money to prove self-defense? Like, you have way more resources than everyday normal citizens do. Like, what are you talking about? But that was their reasoning. The state just doesn't have the resources for that.
So here's what bugs me about that, I guess, in a way too, is that if anything, like if I'm Dean Plocker, I'm not saying that the state doesn't have the resources. The only legitimate argument against a bill like that would be is that the state should already have to have the overwhelming, the burden of proving that you did commit murder by overwhelming evidence. Like, that should already be the standard. And so if someone did come into your home and you shot him, it should already be on the state to prove that you committed murder. They have to, it should already be on the state to prove that you weren't doing self-defense in the first place, because that is naturally, if you used your weapon in self-defense and then they tried to accuse you of murder, the first thing you're going to say in court is, he came into my home and I was defending myself. It's the burden would naturally then shift to the prosecution to prove that you didn't do that. So again, the way Dean Plocker words that is that he agrees with basically, in a sense, is agreeing with the statement that you should have to prove self-defense, and that he really doesn't care because of state resources. No, his argument is a joke.
Yeah, it is. It's an absolute joke, but that's
And to your point, when I go to the gun shows, because I'll represent the Libertarian Party at gun shows occasionally, and there's a booth set up of somebody, you pay money to get into this membership, and I'm not certain, but I think that if something does happen with involving your Second Amendment rights and your right to self-defense, that they'll send someone to represent you. And they also send out like pamphlets with like what to say, because to your point, there are a lot of like sometimes prosecutors want wins. Like there are tons of instances where prosecutors just want to book people. It looks good. Or if the media gets people into a frenzy, Kyle Rittenhouse style, then there's there's the feeling prosecutors have, we have to go get this guy. And so then you need to have the best version, your best representation of the events, and with a legal representative to help you, because the government will try to railroad you even if you were rightfully protecting yourself and your property. And so again, I wish we didn't need a law like that, but your argument for not having a law like that can't be because the state doesn't have the resources that the average person would have to cover legal fees. Like that's, and the sad part of the thing about Kim Gardner and with this current, with what we're talking about now, is that under a true voluntarist free society, the judicial system would be one of the cornerstones, if not the cornerstone of that society. Like your ability to settle differences between estates is imperative in a free society. Like settling disagreements and disputes and having some sort of relegated system to do that is super important. And so when you've got people like Kim Gardner and you've got people like the prosecutors who just want to send everyone to jail, even if they're innocent, you're desecrating what is probably one of the most important foundations in society.
Yeah, if you don't have good legal recourse, um, you're kind of screwed. And again, when you have prosecutors who think they have to fill some kind of quota, I mean, we've seen several instances. Everybody's seen instances of overzealous law enforcement and prosecuting attorneys in different areas that they just railroad somebody, break them down, get them to admit to something they didn't do. And then these people sit in jail for 5, 10, 15, 20 years before they're finally exonerated. And again, here's just to add injury to insult for the rest of us. As bad as I feel for that person, of course, is going to sue the city, right? It's going to sue the police department. It's going to sue the city attorney's office or whatever. And then the people's taxes have to pay the damages because none of those people are bonded. I might have to sit down one of these days with the help from somebody to say, let's write a law that says if you are in any type of government official position, what like city council, county executives, any of these people like that, law enforcement, you have to be bonded automatically. So if someone decides to sue you because you've trampled on their natural rights, you're paying for it. The person who's getting sued is paying the damages. Now, it might be the insurance that they're covering on themselves is paying it, and the taxpayers don't owe squat. And the only caveat, the only thing I would add to that law that says the city cannot pay the bond insurance for the officers. They have to pay it themselves, because then that'll be, come in, work for us, and we'll pay for your bond insurance. That's coming out of taxpayer dollars, and you're still going to end up paying in some way for the damages. So that would have to be added in. The city, the county, the state cannot cover the bond insurance of any of those politicians or whatever elected position they hold. No, that person has to pay for it themselves and nip that in the bud as well.
Yeah. I have to bring this up because we were just talking about how much the government, like when someone's like suing the government, so then eventually that money just you end up paying double because you're paying to prosecute the guy, and then you're also paying for the settlement after. Did you see that the Supreme Court ruled that there's going to be a system? Well, maybe not that the Supreme Court ruled this, but the Supreme Court ruled that Trump's tariffs were unconstitutional. So now there's a government system where these businesses can come in and get their tariff money back. Did you see that, John? $166 billion slush fund.
Yeah, and there won't be any fraud in that either, just like the COVID funds, right? Jesus.
They already passed that on to the consumer. I know this. I could list you 10 different examples of people I
Yep.
know of businesses that have raised their prices because of the tariffs, sometimes upwards of 30 to 50% on certain items. They've already raised the prices. That's how the economics works. These businesses weren't going to sit there and take losses because of the tariffs. They were going to
Right.
raise their prices and pass it on to the consumer, which they've already done. So now they're going to go get all this money back from the government. And do you think they're going to have massive fire sales and be like, we got to pay this back to the customer now? We've got to give this back because we raised the prices on the customer. So now that the government's given us this money, we have to lower our prices to even lower than before. And then once we cover the difference, we'll go back to normal. Do you think that's what businesses are going to do, John? Do you think that's what they're going to do? Or are they just greedy SOB, you know what's? And just, man, I cannot believe that. I can't believe I was like, I was like shocked how angry I was at like just the level of ignorance it is to then turn around and I would literally have them just they took $166 billion, gave, I don't know, 100. I'm not bad. Ignore the math on this, but let's say they gave, $1,000 to every taxpayer or whatever for whatever you're going to do for the $166 billion, because the people are the ones who paid it. We already paid for the tariffs, and now you're giving the business the money that we already gave them. I'm so chapped about it, John.
You know what? You've got a good point. That's a good point. The taxpayers paid that because, again, businesses are not going to eat. And I don't blame them. I wouldn't want to eat that cost either. I'd be really ticked off at my government for causing me financial harm by enacting tariffs on products that I'm trying to bring in or do whatever with. So I'm going to be super ticked about that, right? And so, yeah, I'm not going to eat the cost because now you might slow down the rate at which consumers buy my products because I had to raise the prices. Now you're giving me a financial hit. I have to pay more for whatever I'm using to produce goods. I have to then charge that to my customers. They may order less from me because of the higher rate. So they're getting hit on both ends. They could lose business while having to charge more and pay more for whatever parts, whatever. But then, so if we're looking at like electronics or whatever, it's coming from overseas, we, the people who decide to buy these products, get hit with a higher price. And then, yeah, the businesses are going to recoup it, but it's like we already paid that loss to them. We paid for that. I'm not saying that the business necessarily wanted to raise their prices. They didn't have much of a choice. And then now they're going to be like, oh, yeah, we get to recoup all this extra money now. So I'm just saying, if I don't see, I better see a bunch of business leaders coming out of the woodwork and saying, if you raise, if those tariffs come back again, you're going to get hammered. Something's got to happen, but they're just going to be like, well, okay, we got our money recouped. And the prices are generally probably not going to go down. They're not going to go back down to their normal price. Because we also have inflation. So you got to look at it this way. We got inflation. The prices went up because of inflation. You add tariffs to that. That's a price increase. So even if it did drop a little bit, we're still in an inflationary state. So those prices are never going to come back down to where they were before all this inflation hit from the mass printing of money and the tariffs. Those prices are never going to come back down. Not generally. They're going to stay there. And because our government, can't stop printing money and can't stop trying to we're going to make America great again by causing all the people to have to pay higher prices. If we can't get them to wrap their heads around all this, we're the only ones getting screwed. The people that work in DC, these lawmakers, they're not hurting. Man, they got first choice at what stocks to buy and when to sell, insider trading. They've got all the secrets. They got everything. And we are the ones getting screwed. And don't forget, in May, we have a primary in Kentucky. Thomas Massey is going to be going up against Ed Galrain in the Kentucky primary. And I'm just saying now that if by some chance that Ed Galrain would win that primary, I hope 10 planefuls of cow manure fly over all the government buildings and accidentally open up the cargo doors and just dump it out, where there's like tons of manure spread everywhere, because I'm done totally. Any of these good old boys that come from Missouri that went up there, the Schmitz and all those, screw those guys. Rand Paul, okay, generally pretty good, but if Massey loses his primary, dude, I can't say the words that I want to say because this goes out on the radio. I can't say what I want to say, but you can just imagine the words that are churning in my head right now. And also to the people in Kentucky that would vote for someone like Ed Galrain over Thomas Massey, you're going to get everything that you deserve. Every bad idea, every bad policy, every bad regulation, every bad law, and all the stupid spending, you deserve everything you get if you kick a Thomas Massey out in a primary. That's all I have to say about that.
Now, I don't know 100% of the details, but I saw that Rand Paul actually voted in the Senate to send armored bulldozers and more weaponry to Israel, which shocked me. And then I saw pictures of him doing the classic wall kissing. Now, the photos of that looked older, but I've
Jesus.
never really heard. I mean, he's going on Piers Morgan, and I don't want to. Maybe he has gone after the Israeli lobby and gone after their influence on the government in some way. But I mean, for someone who just seems like he's like he's endorsed Thomas Massey. You know, he's got his 6 penny plan. So for every dollar spent, he wants to cut 6 pennies of it and balance the budget in 10 years or something like that. I mean, he's Ron Paul's son, so he's got a lot of really good stuff. But if he's bought for by the lobby and he's going to continue, doing whatever the 51st state directs him to do, then I don't think I could vote for him if he as a president candidate. If I wasn't certain, and I mean absolutely certain, that he wasn't going to be against doing things like that. And judging based off these last couple votes, I mean, because he voted for war powers, he's voted for, he never votes for like a bigger budget. And so there are more spending out of the Senate. And so it is strange for him to have voted yes on those bills, but it's that is one thing I won't compromise on in November. And so I hope, I mean, again, like I said, if it's true that he's really, actually in support of the Israeli lobby and their greater Israel ambitions, then you can count me out of a Rand Paul presidency under those conditions.
So I don't know when this article was written. This is from April 2026. And it says Senator Rand Paul has more often used procedural tactics, holds, and blocks of unanimous consent to impede Israel security aid measures than he has cast recorded roll call votes explicitly opposing such bills, reporting documents multiple holds going back to 2018 and through the 2020s, while explicit roll call no votes on discrete Israel security aid bills appear in the public record far less frequently. I'm trying to find. So by contrast, the publicly reported roll call record shows comparatively few clear instances where Paul voted on the floor and registered an outright no on an Israel security aid measure. Newsweek cites Paul explaining a specific August 2025 or 2022 vote as a rejection of an unbudgeted $1 billion Iron Dome supplemental, noting he voted against that funding and separately blocked unanimous consent votes during debate. So
little mixed bag.
Huh?
I said a little mixed bag there. Not exactly sure where he lands.
Yeah, that's why I said he can be okay. But he's still no Thomas Massey, and he's definitely no Ron Paul. So if we lose Massey in a primary, dude. I can't fathom that happening, but actually I can, because people have lost their minds. I know he didn't show up to Galrain didn't show up to last debate, and Thomas Massey's having a field day making fun of him, like turning and shaking a hand where nobody's there. And I think putting it like somebody like photoshopped a chicken in the chair, like, Galrain's a big chicken. So he's been pretty good about making fun of Galrain, but because he's and we got to get at least one. There's one other article I really want to get into tonight, but that it's also odd to me. It's not odd. I understand it, right? But these people who like the Ed Galrains in the world who just refuse to show up and debate, but wanna win an election because they know absolutely they have no case for anything they say. They're vomiting out what they've been told to say by the Trumps of the world, but they don't have a leg to stand on for their argument. So he's just not going to show up because he knows Massey is going to absolutely murder him in a debate. But it's like if a guy like that wins, that is absolutely just a revolting thought. I don't even want to think about it.
What's crazy to me is that normally if you're dodging debates, it's because you're going to win. Like Ann Wagner's never coming out to debate the Democrat in District 2 because she's going to win regardless. And so she doesn't have to go on record and have something that someone can use against her or like put her record out there. She knows she's safe. Fed Galrain is down. Credit to the not Missouri. Credit to the Good Morning Liberty guys. That's where I first heard the Fed Galrain. But Fed Galrain, he's down like 10 points. Kalshi, the betting odds, has Thomas Massey at 2/3 odds to win the race, and he's up like 8 to 10 points in polling. So normally, whenever someone like when Ed Galrain's down 10 points, so normally when you're down 10 points in polling, you debate as much as you can. You're
Yes.
like, oh, I got to get my face out there. This guy does like a couple radio appearances, the fight voice crack with Donald Trump. And then no shows debates. Like it's too close to the election for you to be no showing debates down 10. Now, if Ed Galrain was begging for debates and Thomas Massey's like, I'll go on long for him. I'll give my answers, properly, but I don't feel like doing a debate because honestly, in a lot of ways, a debate is just it's like almost two separate forums in a way. Like, yeah, sure, the candidates are going to ask questions of each other, but for the most part, it's moderator ask question, 2 minutes to answer. Moderator ask question, 2 minutes to answer. Like that's the format, right? That's really just that's almost like two separate things happening at one time on a stage. It's like almost like a showcase more than a debate. In not every instance. Sometimes, depending on who's debating, like Donald Trump's, those got out of hand quickly, but for better or worse sometimes. But no, so I mean, I would understand the argument if you were winning to not want to debate and not do it, but to be losing by 10 and not debate, it means you, like you said, it's because you have no good arguments. It's because you know that whenever someone tests your ideas, you're going to get torn to shreds.
Yeah, it's not like, if Ed Galrain, or I'm sorry, I like the guys from GMLs, but if Fed Galrain was going to debate someone with a mentality of a Joe Biden, you'd be like, oh, he's going to jump all over this because this is easy pickings, right? You go up against Thomas Massey, that's a different story. Like Massey is good at making his point and making good, solid points, backing them up with facts. Galrain clearly doesn't have the mental acuity that Massey has. And he knows 100% in his mind that Massey will pick him up, tip him over, and mop the floor with him without breaking a sweat. Galrain will have the typical GOP neocon talking points. Massey's going to have the principled constitutional stance. And if you're really good, like at Massey or Ron Paul, you can wipe the floor with anybody because they're going to keep regurgitating the same thing they've said for 20 years. There might be little nuanced changes, but they're stuck on certain talking points. That's all they're going to discuss. they're not going to have like some deep dive, like really intellectually strong uh, comebacks or things to say. It's going to be, as Tom Woods would call them, everything's going to sound, they're going to sound like midwits, right? Mental midgets. They don't stand a chance against the masses. All right. I want to get into this. I want to get into this one article here because I found this one interesting. And the reason I want to say that is because what I said about Plocker and the Enhanced Stand Your Ground Act that they tried to get passed a few years ago, there's kind of the same thing mentioned in this article here. Pull this up on my screen. I can, I don't know if you want to read this one, Brandon.
Sure. Yeah,
Okay.
I'll start. Missouri bid to end judge-imposed death sentences faces Senate roadblock. A bipartisan bill pairing automatic expungement with a requirement for unanimous juries in death penalty cases has gained traction, but a Senate leader says the death penalty changes won't pass. A bipartisan push to end a Missouri law allowing judges to impose the death penalty when jurors can't agree has moved further through the legislature this year than excuse me, any point in at least a decade. But opposition from Senate leaders makes it unlikely to pass. Missouri and Indiana are the only states that allow judges to choose the death penalty when a jury is deadlocked in a first-degree murder case. Most other states default to life imprisonment without parole. A bill sponsored by Republican State Rep Bishop Davidson of Republic would require a jury's unanimity to sentence someone to death and mandate life in prison when juries remain split. It would also direct the state to automatically expunge electronic criminal records of thousands of eligible Missourians convicted of nonviolent offenses who have served their sentences. Davidson's bill passed the House 140-7 in March with 95 Republicans in support and was unanimously voted out of the Senate committee last week. Democratic Senator Brian Williams of University City is sponsoring a similar bill that combines the automatic expungement and sentencing measures. But the proposal faces a significant obstacle in the Senate, where Majority Leader Tony Lukemire said he remains vehemently opposed to requiring jury unanimity for a death sentence. It will not pass the Senate, said Lukemire, a Parkville Republican. Lukemire, who has served as Senate Majority Leader, controls the chamber's agenda, sparred last year with Republican State Senator Mary Elizabeth Coleman of Arnold over a bill that would have required jurors unanimity for the death penalty, saying it would have protected some of the most heinous murderers in the state of Missouri. Supporters of efforts to eliminate the judicial override argue that Missouri's current system violates defendants' constitutional right to a trial by jury and increases the chances of executing an innocent person. They also emphasize broad, long-standing support in Missouri. In cases that could result in the death penalty, sentencing happens in a separate phase of the trial from determination of guilt. Corina Barrett Lane, a legal historian for the University of Richmond and former prosecutor, told The Independent that while jurors must find guilt beyond a reasonable doubt in order to convict someone, the sentencing phase allows them to heed any residual doubt about the defendant's guilt. Beyond a reasonable doubt is not beyond all doubt, said Lane. Sometimes a jury will have found guilt beyond a reasonable doubt, but they still have residual doubt, and in those cases, they will vote for life rather than death. Allowing a judge to override a jury's vote, Lane said, nullifies the voices on the jury. Heidi Moore, executive director of Missourians to Abolish the Death Penalty, told The Independent that a single person should not be allowed to impose the death penalty. If we trust juries to determine whether or not they're guilty, we must trust them to determine the appropriate sentence, Moore said. One or more jurors voted for life in more than 90% of death row exonerations in states that allow the death penalty based on non-unanimous jury vote, a 2020 analysis by the Death Penalty Information Center found. Lukemire, who is running for Platte County prosecutor, said requiring jurors unanimity would allow people convicted of horrible crimes to escape punishment. He referred to Lance Shockley, who was executed last October after being convicted in 2009 for the murder of Missouri State Highway Patrol Sergeant Carl Dwayne Graham Jr. At least 2 jurors voted for Shockley to serve life in prison, according to his attorney. Lukemire opposes the bill because it would have allowed a convicted cop killer who has now received the death penalty to have gotten off of death row. Like Shockley, Craig Wood was sentenced to death by a judge. Missouri Supreme Court in January refused to resentence Wood, who was convicted of kidnapping, raping, and murdering a 10-year-old girl. I'm not supportive of changing the law to allow these types of individuals to get off death row, Luke Meyer said. Ahead of Shockley's death, members of his legal team argued that his work as a mentor for fellow inmates for more than a decade in Potosi's Correctional Center should have allowed him to spend his life in prison. Shockley's behavior qualified him to live in the facility's honor dorm, and he volunteered with inmates with developmental disabilities, often praying with them. Shockley was executed 2 days before a scheduled court hearing on DNA testing of crime scene items that could have exonerated him, according to the Marshall Project. Sharon Jones, a lobbyist representing Missourians to abolish the death penalty, told The Independent that the obstacles to eliminating Missouri's judicial override are all procedural. The problem we are having is that there is always just a few senators who feel very strongly about it, and they're in leadership positions, so they've been preventing a vote on the bill, Jones said. Every year since at least 2016, at least one lawmaker has filed a bill to eliminate Missouri's judicial override. This year, 13 lawmakers, including 4 Republicans, filed bills containing a provision mandating life imprisonment without parole when a jury is deadlocked. It's the 4th year Coleman has filed such a bill. Last year, that number was 10, including 5 Republicans. During a Senate committee hearing this month on Davidson's bill, the measure drew support from Missouri NAACP, conservatives concerned about the death penalty, the interfaith group Missouri Faith Voices, and the Peace and Justice Commission of the Archdiocese of St. Louis. 2 weeks before Shockley's death, a survey of 440 Missouri voters presented with details of the case found that 79% of Democrats, 67% of independents, and 53% of Republicans supported clemency, with many objecting to the judge imposing capital punishment. The bill's pairing with automatic expungement has complicated the politics. More than 500,000 Missourians are eligible to have convictions sealed, but fewer than 1% have done so, according to a 2023 study by Santa Clara University researchers. If Missouri cleared this backlog, the study found the 26% difference between black and white Missourians with at least one conviction on their record would be decreased by over half. The Missouri Budget Project has found that people who receive expungement see an average of 23% increase in annual wages, with the largest gains among black people and women. Davidson said the coalition behind the package supports both automatic expungement and ending judicial override, but he acknowledged the death penalty provision may prove harder to move. If that's the thing that has to go in order for the whole thing to advance, that's an unfortunate situation, but it's something I think that we have to be willing to consider, Davidson said. Williams told The Independent that the clean slate provision regarding expungement is an equity and economic issue. Equity. The bill is just as much a workforce development, economic development, and racial equity policy all at once. While Williams said he hopes to keep the judicial override provision in the legislation, quote, "We need to make sure that it doesn't ultimately prevent over 500,000 Missourians from having access to an expungement that they are eligible for."
All right. So, go ahead and give me your thoughts, Brandon.
So my main thought is that I'm actually not opposed to needing full jury consent. The only caveat I'll say is that I don't know of any other cases where the jury gets to determine the punishment outside of a civil trial. In all other criminal cases that I can think of, the jury finds the guilt and the judge imposes the sentence anyway. So it's not like we have a long-standing history of having juries handing down the sentence, but it's a special instance, in my opinion, where we are granting the state power to end a life. Not just to like there's crime and punishment, and then there's we keep people in prison because we want to make society safe, but we are granting the state the power to end someone's life. And just the gravity of that, on the instances where someone is innocent, I could definitely see the argument being made that you should have the full jury consent, because there is an argument to be made that the death penalty should be used for the most heinous of crimes. And so again, I don't know. What's your opinion on it?
I would rather just like you have to have all 12 vote to convict someone of the crime, and then the judge would sentence them. I would like it better if the jury says we believe this man should get the death penalty and not just one person. Um, I just, again, there's a big difference between saying you're going to spend 25 years in prison to, a big difference from that to we're killing you. We're going to put you in the gas chamber. We're going to kill you by lethal injection. Whatever we're going to do, the thing is, if sometimes these judges go on power trips, and I am not real fond in the justice system of one person having the power over the decision to kill someone. Like giving the state that power bugs me. If a jury of 12 says, man, this guy is a horrible human being, the crimes he's committed are beyond horrible, and we believe that he should get the death penalty, that's one thing. If a judge goes, you get the death penalty, that's someone working for the state. They work for the judicial system of the state. That I'm not a fan of. I would rather the jury make up their mind. If 11 out of 12 say death penalty, one person's like, I don't agree, then they don't get the death penalty. I think if it's such a terrible crime that generally the jury in full is going to be like, yeah, give him the death penalty. There's no way that we're going to rehabilitate this guy. He is just evil, right? That's different to me than the judge being like, I think this guy's a piece of crap, kill him. Now, again, I'm not advocating for cop killers. I just think it's funny that someone who's a cop killer may get the death penalty because he killed a cop over somebody that might have done something just as horrible in another way, and they don't get the death penalty. I feel like sometimes certain groups of people are given higher precedence as far as like a death penalty judgment over other crimes. That also bothers me. I'm not saying I hate cops. That's not what I'm saying. People go, you hate cops. I don't hate cops. But I also don't think they get some kind of privilege over everyone else. I don't agree with that. So anyway.
No, I agree with your point. Like if it was a nurse, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And not a cop, that doesn't make the crime any more or less heinous. It was just it happened to be the profession of the person who was killed.
Yes.
And so, yeah, I don't think like adding cop killer to the whole argument, like, well, we can't pass this bill because the cop killer might get let loose. It's like, okay, the nurse killer though is better or worse than, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. So it's a stupid argument to make.
All right. So I don't have it pulled up. Apparently, so there is a bill in Missouri. The Attorney General's office is sending out letters telling people that they have certain hemp products in their store and they need to cease and desist of selling those. They've been lab tested, and they're saying, well, they're finding these heavy metals and stuff in the products, so you have to stop selling them. And there are some businesses out there like, we don't believe your lab findings. We'd like to see this for ourselves, or we'd like to have our stuff tested. There have been 1,000+ letters sent to the governor's desk saying, don't sign this bill into law. And I don't see him budging on it, because the marijuana monopoly in this state has spoken clearly. They want to rule the roost on anything that's intoxicating when it comes to THC. And I don't believe there's much, unless 10,000 people show up outside the governor's mansion and go, we'll make sure you never get elected again if you sign this bill. Like, you're done. And something's going to happen. You're going to have masses of people show up in droves to try. And I don't even know if that would work, because again, the marijuana monopoly in this state has got a firm grasp on the legislative body, I believe. So that bill has gone to his desk. I hate to say it, but I see him signing it. and not saying, well, these people make a good point, because a lot of Republicans in this state don't listen to the will of the people very well. So just be aware of that you're going to start seeing, you may start seeing more articles and more businesses talking about, there was one business that there was smoke shop. They only offered one product with THCA. Everything is just hemp. And they're, according to federal law, they're completely legal. So they're like, we don't agree with what the state's doing here with these cease and desist letters that are being mailed out. And so they're swearing it down. They're following the federal farm bill, all this stuff. But the state of Missouri's gone off the rails again, and we will be seeing, you'll be seeing a lot of hemp products, especially if they have any type THC in them. They'll be disappearing off at the stores that you go to that's not a dispensary. And I'm sure you might find a few in the dispensaries, but that's the only place you're going to find them now, because we still have a bunch of backwards Republicans in this state that couldn't find their butthole with a map, both hands, and a flashlight. And so, yeah, it's not looking good for hemp, intoxicating hemp products in the state of Missouri.
Well, even if you are into like the Delta products and the Kratom and all of that, it's just going to cost you more money now, because it's going to have to go through a more rigorous control process. You're going to have to go into a dispensary and pay dispensary taxes on it. Not to mention that there's like a separate issue here where, like, if your main concern was that these products were being peddled to like people who weren't supposed to have them, that's a whole different like issue versus where you can and can't buy them. Because the same places that they're trying to outlaw where you could go buy hemp products, a lot of them you could buy alcohol. And you have to be 21 to buy alcohol, which means you have to show an ID and, get past the guy at the counter with it. And so what doesn't make any sense to me is that the people who are running these places are going to be doing basically the same amount of regulation as the dispensary is. You check an ID, see if they're of age, and then they go through. And ironically, at the dispensaries, you can get in at 18 if you have a medical card. And so that doesn't make any sense to have, like, they're basically just changing where people have to go to get it and pay more money to get it. And so you're not really like effectuating any meaningful change to like help prevent kids from getting it, because the same people, like, there was still an ID process for buying it before. You still like 12-year-olds couldn't go in and buy CBD products and Kratom products. You still had to be 21, I believe. I don't know. I don't mess around with that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's 18 or 21.
Right,
but you can't be 15 and do it.
Right. So my point still stands, is that there was already the same exact procedure in place for preventing, for what the claim was. Like, that's the claim as to why they have to push this into the dispensaries, is that, well, you don't want a kid getting a package that looks like Skittles. It's like the place that sells that should also be IDing for that anyway. So what is your point? Makes no sense. All you did was do, like you said, do a big favor to the dispensary and marijuana industry by forcing all of these products out of traditional, like, separate smoke shops and like convenience stores into the dispensaries for your buddies. But you haven't made any meaningful impact on stopping underage people from getting it, because they already needed an ID to buy it.
Also, when you do this, what do you do when you do this with products? You drive people to the black market. So you do this, and then people start buying black market products like this, and you might see a little epidemic of people being injured because it's a horrible product, right? And then you'll hear law enforcement or people in the legislative body like, oh, we got to do something about this. It's like, yeah, you caused it. You could have just left it alone, but no, you had to create a whole new law, and you're going to say these products can only be sold in this type of store. You drove the product to a certain type of retail establishment. You sucked it away from everybody else. And Now you're going to push people to the black market. They're going to find alternative ways. They always do. I wish legislators could get this through their thick freaking skulls. Anytime you try to a prohibition style thing on anything, you're just driving people to get to the black market. And they just, for some reason, they can't grasp this. They think that everybody's just going to give up on whatever habit they had and just quit using it or go to the dispensary and pay a god awful high price for it. No, if they want it cheaper, they'll figure out a way. And you just drove them to that. Now, you won't take the blame for that, legislators. You'll play the, we're just trying to do what's best for the kids. Listen, screw the kids. Okay. Just screw the kids. How about you do something that's not so people hear that and be like, oh, John doesn't like kids. I have kids. I have grandkids. Of course I like kids. I'm just saying that as a way of, can we please stop using that language every time these subjects come up, that we have to protect the kids? It goes along. Sometimes someone will post something on social media about a government policy or whatever, and I just comment, government protecting the hell out of you. And that's all they're doing. They're just literally, they're protecting the hell out of you. And they're making products more expensive. They're not saving any lives. They're just bowing down to lobbyist organizations. And that ticks me right off. All right, Brandon, we got about 4 minutes left. Any other parting thoughts before we close out?
Yeah. So they are Thomas Massey. Again, I'm very surface level knowledge on this right now, but so Thomas Massey led an effort and was able to temporarily block the FISA 702 extension. And Donald Trump posted on Truth Social, I'm willing to sacrifice some of my freedoms for the protection of the United States military and blah, 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 blah.
Jesus. Yeah, I
know.
saw
And
that.
people were posting all kinds of things from like founding fathers and Ben Franklin and all these people who were like, I would never sacrifice an inch of freedom for any amount of security. Like that's a dangerous precedent and dangerous idea. Just roasting him. And then obviously there's a post for everything. So you've got Donald Trump from 2020 where he's like, maybe it was after 2020. Yeah, after 2020, where he's like,
oh, yes,
we have to kill FISA. That's what they used to spy on me and my administration. This is a terrible thing. And now he's like, we need a clean 702. It's like, you are just the biggest like backstabbing a-hole president on the whole planet, like of my lifetime in history, just the biggest backstabber. We can argue about who's the worst president, but just the amount of tweets that this guy has where he has the right thing, where he's like, Marco Rubio would be a perfect AIPAC puppet. Barack Obama is going to invade Iran because of his tanking poll numbers. You know, we need to get rid of the FBI building. We need to get rid of FISA. We need to blah, blah, blah. He's like, dude, if you just took the compilation of all of his best things that he said, you'd have one hell of a president. But what we've got is a giant dumpster fire of scandal and lies. All right.
Yeah. So just to round out the show, I saw this quote, and this just pretty much is a nutshell of government. So the post says, so let me get this straight. I go to the grocery store and buy a pound of sliced turkey in a plastic bag, a loaf of bread in a plastic bag, a gallon of milk in a plastic jug, a pack of napkins in a plastic wrap, a store-made salad in a plastic tub, a plastic bottle of mustard and ketchup, but they won't give me a plastic bag to carry it home because the plastic bag is bad for the environment. That's government in a nutshell.
I've never thought about that. They ban plastic bags and sell you everything in plastic.
Yes.
Even aluminum cans of soda lined with plastic.
Yeah.
Hilarious.
So that's just government in a nutshell. It's so dumb. It's almost like we're living in a fantasy world. Okay, folks, again, don't forget, next week, Michael Murphy will be joining us out of Cook County. That poor guy. The next week, make sure, especially next week, Monday, May the 4th, the following week after Michael Murphy's interview, May the 4th at 6:30, we'll be right here on the Missouri Liberty Report with a very special guest, Spike Cohen. Tuesday night, we'll have our Marxist edition of the show for the month. And then we'll be back to Tuesdays every week after that, unless we get another special guest that only has to do other days. And that's fine too. We can make this work. This is how we get freedom and liberty message to the people. Is we sometimes we have to change our day of streaming, and that's a small little minute thing that we have to do sometimes. Absolutely fine. All right, folks, that's going to do it for this edition of the Missouri Liberty Report. Again, thanks to all of you who watch or listen on whatever platform you choose to catch this show. If you're watching on on YouTube or Rumble, give us a like, give us a subscribe. If you're watching this on a podcasting app, leave us a like, leave us a rating, leave us a review so that more people can find this show and find the message of liberty. That's going to do it, and we'll see you right back here next week, Tuesday at 6:30 p.m. for another edition of the Missouri Liberty Report. Actually, before I go, I want to play something. Let me see if I can find it. Is this the right video? No. Let me. I played this one time before, but I have to play it again because I love it so freaking much. I gotta look through my history. It'll take me a little while because I watched too many YouTube videos. All right, here we go. Let me share my screen. This is just for anybody who still happens to be watching the live stream, and I'm not. I love this bit from Doug Stanhope.
I mean, you're born absolutely free, except for laws of nature. If you drink, you get drunk. That's a law. If you get old, you die. That's a law too. If you sit on a tack, you will bleed from the ass. These are the only laws that you're born with, and any government just fucks you out of that type of freedom. If you really think you're free tonight, you, hero, Officer Bob, you're a free man. You live in a free country, but you go upstairs, you take your own beer you risked your life for. You sit on the hood of your monster truck in the parking lot and drink your beer and see how long it is before actual veteran cops come by and pound on you with truncheons on the kidneys to show, why can't I do it? I'm just having a beer. I don't know. That's the law, though. You don't fuck around. You can't drive down the street without a seatbelt on. Why not? I don't know. You're going to put on a helmet. You can't sit in your own backyard naked, your own filthy, dirty flesh that you're born with. You know that body you carry around? Filthy. You can't sit out. Why not? I don't know. That's just the way it is. Mother! You're not free. You're not free in the least. You need a diploma in this country to cut hair. You're free. You need to keep your tray in an upright and locked position during takeoff. It's not just a hack premise. It's a fucking felony. And Cunty the hero sky cunt will fucking throw you off the plane as a terrorist for going, why do I have to have this? This doesn't make sense. They say if you give a man a fish, he'll eat for a day. But if you teach a man to fish, then he's got to get a fishing license, but he doesn't have any money. So he's going to get a job, and he has to get into the Social Security system and pay taxes. And now you're going to audit the poor cocksucker because he's not really good with math. You pull the IRS van up to your house, he'll take all your shit. He'll take your Black Velvet Elvis and your Batman toothbrush and your penis pump, and that all goes up for auction with the burden of proof on you because you forgot to carry the one because you were just worried about eating a fucking fish, and you couldn't even cook the fish because you needed a permit for an open flame. And then the health department is going to start asking you a lot of questions about where are you going to dump the scales and the guts. This is not a sanitary environment. And ladies and gentlemen, if you get sick of it all at the end of the day, not even legal to kill yourself in this country. Thanks again, John Ashcroft, you weird Bible addict, can't even handle his own drug. You were born free, you got fucked out of half of it, and you wave a flag celebrating.
Yeah, it's too good. I enjoy that clip thoroughly, so I just had to play that before I ended the live stream. Anyway, see y'all later. Take care, everybody.